So, when you don't know how to do something, how to fix something, or how something works, what do? Ask a teacher? Ask your parents? Ask your friends? Ask someone you really know and trust? No! You go to the internet and ask some randos. But I'm not talking about creeps here, I hope. No, I mean the people of the internet! You know, those people who make how-to videos. Because chances are, if you're trying to figure out something, someone on the internet has already figured it out for you. Things like, how do I unsend a text? No. How do I do a winged eyeliner? How do I get rid of the zit by Friday night? How do I get out of gym class? How do I screen cap Snapchat without getting caught? They'll never know. But then there are things in life that don't have an easy fix, that don't have a simple solution, that don't have a how-to video. Things like what to do when you have problems with family, or when it seems like you have no control in your life, or what to do when someone has done something to you. I mean, clearly, they gotta go. The truth is, there's a lot of life that doesn't have a solution you can just find online. So how do you know what to do when you don't know what to do?
So just the other day, I was at the grocery store, and it wasn't one of those marathon trips where I loaded up on everything. You know, the kind of trips where your parents stock up on all of the greatest things. Bagel Bites, Cool Ranch Doritos, and extra ranch powder, and those cupcakes with the swirlies on top. Nope, for this trip, I was just there to pick up a few essential items. About halfway back to my car, I noticed a $20 bill on the ground. And feel free to judge me all you want. These are the thoughts that went through my head. 1, just ignore it and leave it. Whoever dropped it will come back for it. Or 2, no, ignore thought number 1. God gave you this special $20 bill from heaven. Or the third option, you need to take this inside and give it to the manager. Surely someone will come back and look for it. Or, better me than someone else. It's the parking lot. It's not like someone dropped it by the register when they had their wallet out, If it were that big of a deal to them, they wouldn't have lost it to begin with. And if I take it back in, the employee will probably just keep it, right? Is anybody really going to give back cash? So basically, my brain had an argument with itself. Plus, I was in a rush. With all these options, the question blaring in my mind was, what should I actually do? Some of you would confidently say, take it to the manager, that's the right thing. Others of you would say, take the money. This is not a moral issue, finders keepers, right? And some of you constantly skeptical people are trying to figure out in your mind if this is some late night prank show where they film you and then call you out for being selfish. Here is what I'm getting at. Knowing what to do isn't simple in the moment. And that's what we're talking about in this series. What to do when you don't know what to do. Today, we're going to look at the dilemma of what to do when we don't know what is right and what is wrong. It'd be nice if doing the right thing was always clear and obvious, right? But we all know that isn't always the case. Sometimes the right thing isn't obvious at all. If you're dating somebody and you're texting someone else a lot and you're like, well, I'm not cheating on anyone. We're just texting at 2 a.m. That's not wrong, right? Or is it? Or if your teammate is going on about how your coach is being a jerk and bench them for no reason, but you know that they really need to work on their passing game. Is it wrong to tell them? It hurt for sure, but is it wrong to not tell them if fixing that one thing would get them more playing time in the game? Or if you have a friend who's doing something that really, really bothers you and you don't know if you should talk to them about it or not, you're wondering, if I confront them, am I just going to look like a jerk? Is this my issue or is it their issue? Should I just get over it? What even is the right thing to do in these situations? Sometimes the right thing costs us something. Once I decided to return the $20 bill to the customer service desk, I knew it would cost me something. Specifically, it cost me $20. On top of that, I had to spend time going back into the store and having the conversation. So maybe for you, you know the right thing is to be honest with your parents. But if you're honest with them, you'll probably lose your phone, maybe for the rest of your life. You know the right thing isn't to be in that relationship anymore. But if you break up, you'll be single and alone. You know the right thing isn't to let someone cheat off your test. But if you say no, then you somehow feel like the loser. It costs you something socially. You know the right thing is to decline when someone offers you a drink. But it seems like everybody who's drinking is having fun. Saying no will cost you a good time and maybe even a good story to tell on Monday. Do you see what I mean? Sometimes what's right feels complicated. And even when we know what's right, sometimes it's difficult to actually do it. So, with that in mind, let's pick up with Joseph. The past 2 refinery lessons, we've been talking about this guy who was one of the most famous people in early history, and his story is wild, okay? Like sold into slavery by your own brothers, wild. And what we're going to look at today can be a game changer for all of us. It'll help us know what to do when we don't know what to do. We left off last week with Joseph sold into slavery, and we pick up this week with what happened afterward. We're told Joseph was given to work in the house of an officer of Pharaoh, and Pharaoh was like a king, emperor, and president all rolled into one. Whatever Pharaoh said, that's what happened, period. So you can imagine working for one of Pharaoh's important officials was kind of stressful, you could probably imagine. Depending on the situation, it could go either really well or it could be really bad. And there was no telling what situation Joseph was going to walk into. But like we mentioned last week, the author was quick to point out that God was with Joseph, and he had favor with the official, whose name was Potiphar. That means that Potiphar was a fan of Joseph's. Now, let's pick up the story. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Things weren't so bad for Joseph because Potiphar trusted him. And things weren't bad for Potiphar because with Joseph in charge, he was thriving. But then things took a little bit of a weird turn. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. And after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." So this tells us 2 things. One, apparently Joseph wasn't a bad looking guy, okay? Number 2, his boss's wife, noticed that. Okay? So now this was where things got complicated because Joseph was a servant. He was required to not only obey Potiphar, but also his wife. And if he refused her commands, there was nothing holding her back from punishing him. He could be kicked out of their household, which was a better place than others, or even cost him his life. But if he did what she asked, that would create a whole other set of problems, okay? So she was married to his boss. Both options came with problems. It wasn't easy or clear to make a decision. So what did Joseph do when he didn't know what to do? Listen to what this next part of the story says. But he refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. So basically, out of respect for Potiphar and out of an even bigger respect for God, Joseph simply did the next right thing. Joseph didn't make a decision based on how things might turn out for him, like losing his job or even his life. He made a decision based on what was right. And what was right in that moment was turning down Potiphar's wife. It was complicated. It was challenging, but it was the right thing to do. It wasn't exactly like his life was perfect as a result of making this right choice. In fact, things got worse. Potiphar's wife falsely accused Joseph of rape. Potiphar believed his wife and had Joseph thrown into prison. Not exactly the happy ending you're hoping for when you do the right thing, right? But Joseph didn't make his own decision based on what it might mean for him. He did what was right with God and trusted God with the outcome. The outcome for Joseph in this situation wasn't great, but there's a word I want you to know that changes everything when it comes to the doing what's right dilemma. And that word is integrity. Maybe you've heard that word before. Integrity means being the kind of person who does what's right, regardless of the outcome and regardless of who is around. Sometimes doing the right thing will get you an applause, and sometimes it won't. Sometimes doing the right thing will cost you something, and sometimes it won't. Sometimes doing the right thing will make you look good, and sometimes it will make you look stupid. We don't get to decide how things turn out, but we get to decide what kind of person we want to be. And being a person of integrity will lead to a life with less regret, more respect, and a better idea of what to do in every situation. Chances are we'll never find ourselves in the kind of situation that Joseph was in, but we will find ourselves in all kinds of situations where we will have to decide what to do without knowing how it will play out. It could go better than we thought, or it could go worse. But when we make our decisions with integrity, based on what is right, we are living lives that we can be proud of. So here's one thing we can remember. When you don't know what to do, do the next right thing. So try this. 1, think of a situation where you know the right thing to do, but you are afraid to do it. What are you afraid of? If fear wasn't a factor, what would you do? And 2, determine what kind of person you want to be. I'm not talking 5 years from now. What kind of person do you want to be this week? Today? What do you need to do today that will set you up to be the kind of person who respects themselves and can be proud of their decisions. Not because they're easy, but because they're right. Here's the deal. Most of us know the right thing to do in most situations, but fear keeps us from acting how we know we should. More than that, fear and inaction keep us from becoming who we want to be right now. That's why learning to live with integrity, living in a way on the outside that matches what we think and believe on the inside, is the most direct route to being who we want to be. But that doesn't always make it easy to do. So the next 2 steps were created with you, taking the final step to do what you need to do in mind. Number 1, tell somebody the next right thing you're going to do. And 2, invite them to pray for you, then ask you this week if you did it. That's how we live lives of integrity, knowing the next right thing and then doing the next right thing. And inviting someone else to come alongside us. Doing the next right thing doesn't have to be a lonely venture. Invite someone into your story. There is strength that shows up when you allow someone to show up with you. So as we wrap up tonight, I want you to think about a situation where you need to do the next right thing. Think about exactly what you need to do. But just know you don't have to do this alone. You can tap into the help of God and with the help of others. When you don't know what to do the next right thing. We love you guys so much, and we hope that you are enjoying your summer. Message us. We would love to hear from you. It's been a while. Love you guys.